thought I'd do a video on my first camping trip and just kind of give a breakdown of what I took with me and what it cost. There's a big misconception that it's really expensive to go moto camping, and it's not. I probably got a little over $200 into the stuff that I took on that trip, and most of that's bags. You could also just do that all in a duffel bag. So I'm going to go over just the basic stuff that I took with me. Okay, so the first thing that I purchased were the Nelson Rig side bags. And these fit on just about any bike, especially a smaller dual sport bike. The R20s, R20, something like that. Each one of these is 12 liters, and so that's 24 liters of storage. And they work really well. I paid $130, $126, $130 for those, and I can put a lot of stuff in that. Then I also got these dry bag. I think I paid $67 for this one, which was a 30 liter, and then I got the 15 for $61. So yeah, I think that was $61 for that one. And then I took a backpack, and as far as bags go, that's all I had. It worked really well, and for water storage, I just had a couple. I had like 3 of the 1 liter sport bottles, and I think I had my Camel pack, which at that time was a 2 liter. That was more than enough water, and I had this titanium spork with me, and a headlamp. I forget, I think the spork was like under 10 bucks. The headlamp was like 12 bucks. And then I had my little stove here, the BRS. That's 15 bucks for that thing. And that's great. I love this thing. I got the titanium one, so it's even a little bit more expensive than what you really need to have. You don't necessarily need to have the titanium, that's for sure. But I kind of liked it. And then I got this Moon Lance chair. Most of the stuff I got off of Amazon. So the chair was something I was really glad I had. I was really, really glad I had that. So that was, I believe, $30 for the chair. And then I had my sleeping bag, which is a 0 degree bag, and I think I paid $90 for that bag. And then the tent. The tent was the expensive one, $137 for the tent. It's a 2-man tent. I'm going to do a review on just the tent later on, because I think it's worth covering the types of tents that you may want to get. But really, it's just not that expensive to go out, especially if you buddy up with somebody, because you can buddy up with somebody that already has all this gear. And if they have a 2-man tent, you guys can sleep in the same tent, or if you have issues with that, you can bring your own tent, and basically bring your tent and a sleeping bag and your own food, and you should be covered. It doesn't have to be expensive. The thing is that if you go out and you have a cheap Walmart or Target sleeping bag and a tent, doesn't matter. Just make sure you go out when it's appropriate for the gear that you have. If you go out and it's 20 degrees outside, or in the mid-20s like I did a while back, and you have a sleeping bag that's good for 50 degrees, you're going to freeze your butt off. And the only thing you're going to remember for that whole trip is what a lousy night of sleep that you got out of that. It's just very important that your first trip be as good as it can be. Don't set yourself up for failure. don't go out in weather that you're not equipped to deal with. It's always good to test yourself and push the limits a little bit, but not your first time out. You know, your first time out, you want it to be a good experience. And if you go out and you don't get any sleep that night, then that's what you're going to remember, is that, you know, you had a crappy night's sleep, and it just doesn't leave a good taste in your mouth. So you don't have to have the dry bags. I mean, especially I'm out in California, so rarely do we go out and deal with rain and wet water and all that. But I got them just in case. So you can put all this stuff in a duffel bag and be just fine. Like I said, you don't have to have the expensive tents and the sleeping bags and all that. Just make sure when you go out, that you go out when it's appropriate for the gear that you have. I went out, and let's see, I had tent, sleeping bag, my chair, and my stove. I did mountain house meals, and that was it. I don't think I really had anything else that was extravagant. Like I said, a lot of the expense was the bags, and that's just something I already knew I would enjoy doing this, so I wasn't worried about spending the money on the bags. So it was worth it to me. Oh, and I had toothbrush and toothpaste and a first aid kit. But yeah, so if you go out, just make sure you go out in weather that's appropriate for the gear that you have. If you go out in weather that it's just going to make it a bad experience, then yeah, you're going to find out you don't like moto camping. And, so make sure when you do to go out with, buddy up with somebody for your first trip, at least to make sure, you know, I call it a gear shakedown. You know, go out, and that way you have an idea and a backup plan. You have somebody there in case something of yours doesn't work. But that's the best way I can describe it. It doesn't have to be an expensive trip. You know, it's really what you make of it. Go out there with the minimum that you need, and make sure that you're comfortable. Now I go and I have a table and I have an air mattress, and you know, it all starts adding up, and you start carrying more and more. That's okay, you know, as long as you're comfortable with what you're carrying. You know, there's a trade-off for everything. So hopefully you find this a little informative and give you some information, and don't be afraid to go out there and do your first camping trip. Just take what you got and don't worry about it. Just make sure that the weather is appropriate for the gear that you have. So hopefully you found this video informative and get you out there to give it a shot. If you like the video, click the like button, subscribe, go hit the trails.